All right, hopefully we're live. Let me bring Mike's microphone in. Mike, you there?
Hey, we're here. How are you guys doing?
All right, sweet. All right, so I'm going to lower your input because I think you're louder than I am. And I'm going to
I'm
check
always louder.
chat. All right, so it looks like my chat is live. So fantastic. Hi, and welcome, everyone. There's my hand. I have a hand. um, so I guess we'll just say hi and wait for some people to come in so that we don't have to repeat ourselves.
We're not going to wait. It's 9 o'clock. Those who wait lose.
All right. So basically, welcome to PokéStew. I'm Jen, and this is that way. That's Mike. Um, and we're video game organizers and judges, and we're starting this I guess weekly chat with y'all. And weekly we're gonna have some topics and things like that, and basically we want to just kind of bring it out there to you, our experience, our opinions, that kind of stuff, and as a, I guess, as a caveat or as a what is the term for it, as a like warning or whatever. We are not employed by the Pokemon Company. Uh,
Disclaimer.
yeah, disclaimer. That's the word. We are not employed by the Pokemon Company. We are independent organizers. We volunteer at events, and yeah. So that's our standpoint in the community right now.
Yeah,
Um,
and if this takes off, maybe we'll have a little cool opening music and intro graphics and stuff like that. But right now, we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants if it's not obvious.
I wish I had a funny quip there, but I really don't.
No.
Because I'm not gonna joke. I'm nervous. So whatever. So we're here and we're gonna be streaming. So kind of intro ourselves, I guess. I have been doing Pokemon for a long time as a player, and I got into organizing several years ago uh, in Long Island, actually. And the organizer out there was nice enough to allow me to be what are the league leaders?
Yeah,
Yeah, league leader out in Long Island, and so that I can get enough professor points to play in the Professor Cup. And I kind of got hooked on, judging, and so I did TCG for a while, and then when the opportunity came up, like a year or two later, I started doing video game, and so here I am.
that's it. That's the only
That's it.
intro you're gonna do. Ah, man, I
I
have
mean,
like
I
a
could
whole
do
little.
like the cheesy intro. I got back into playing because of my son. I'm a single mom, so I got back into playing because of him. And it looks like we are losing Mike over on this side. Hopefully he comes back.
What?
Mike, you there? No, your video just cut out on me. So
That's your fault.
yeah,
Looks
it's
good on
it's
my
got to be
side.
my fault. Well, you put up something, and I think the video got confused. Whatever you put up.
Oh,
So
that was my little cheat sheet. So you have your little short intro, and I had a nice little thing prepared. And it's like, so on my side, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike, and I've been working with Jen now for what is that? 2 years. We've been working together on different things, kind of
like yeah, a
collaborations.
little bit over 2 years now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my Pokemon journey probably didn't start as early as many of the people that are out there, but I started back in the July of 2011. That seems like a long time, but when you get older, the years get shorter and shorter. Um, and it was really just our first trip to Pokemon Nationals since we live in I random trip on a Sunday afternoon, take my two boys down to Indianapolis to see the this thing we saw in the paper for Pokemon Nationals. Um, and ever since then, we've been kind of hooked. We came back up to Fort Wayne and we joined some local leagues, started playing, took on some league leader roles and helping other people and new players and children, reporting those kinds of things. And then just kind of grew into organizing events, judging, and in that short time frame from 2011 to now, I've done everything from being a player. I won't say competitive player because I don't think I ever was actually competitive in either TCG or BGC. My son's over there. He's being a smart butt because he must remind me that I got donked by Durant when I was playing Zekrom Eagles, U.S. Nationals. Yes, that is possible. Um, But over the course of the years there, I've done everything from, like I said, playing to judging to staffing, local events, all the way up through three different worlds now. Um, so I've seen a lot of things, both good and bad. I've experienced a lot of different things, good and bad, and but every time we get together with a new group of judges and staff, we always seem to learn more things. So, always a continual learning process, and hopefully, if this kind of gains some momentum, uh, we can share some of those experiences and lessons learned back out with everybody else out there. I know Jen put out some feelers, and as we progress with these weekly chats, we'll take other topics from the community. We'll tie them into a weekly agenda and see if we can't talk about some things. And that's kind of where I'm at as well. Oh, wait, before we go on, in honor of Worlds 2018, for
Oh,
anybody that's
please,
actually
somebody
out there.
screenshot this right now because this is hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
so since
great.
we're going to be in Tennessee, we picked these bad boys up at the airport on the way back from Anaheim. A little Western theme going on here, so I had to give a little shout out and a little nod to the 2018 World coming up in Tennessee. Uh,
Oh
so
my God.
with that being said, I'm going to take them off because I can't see a damn thing with those things on. So um,
How y'all doing?
how y'all doing? All right.
All right, so I have a fancy hold, actually not a hold screen, a discussion screen that I'm going to go to. So Mike, if you will do the honors on your side and transition over to our discussion screen. Um, you're being asked to wear those glasses in Connecticut on my side of the stream there,
Oh,
Mike.
seriously,
Yeah.
Connecticut?
Yeah,
You know what?
absolutely.
I think I can arrange that.
Thank you, TJ, for screenshotting that. I'm on I guess a slight delay. I think I have like a 30-second to a minute delay on my side of the stream just because I didn't change my settings from when I normally stream PCs. Um, but so on your screen, you'll see our ambitious topics for the day. So this is the topics that we want to try and get through. I don't know if we're going to get to all of them, but we did hit two of them so far. So good job. Good job, team. Way to go.
Yeah.
Camera. Where's my camera? Okay. Um, so the next one, what we wanted to talk about is kind of like best practices for judges, because Mike and I are constantly, hearing from younger judges or newer judges, if you were, asking for, our experience, our advice, like how, things that we've learned in our 3 years of, world's level judging. Um, and so we figured that was kind of the goal of why we wanted to start this, is reach out to those judges, give them more like, I guess, our opinions, our experiences, and our tools. So best practices is really like, what should you be doing at every given moment, or what are the good things that you can make sure that you do to have a positive tournament experience. And this goes for you know the basic level, from leagues and premier challenges, all the way up to nationals, internationals, I should say, and worlds. You got any thoughts there, Mike, before we get into the bullets?
Yeah, one of the things that bullets is, you start looking through them, it doesn't really cover some of the. If you look at the bullets, they cover a lot of the kind of tangible things, but some of the things that's not on the bullet list, and we'll probably get into in some of the discussions, is the interpersonal aspects, uh, the attitudes, the willingness to go kind of the extra mile as things go on. And that plays a key role. I know a lot of judges have tried for a long time trying to get into some of the larger events. Um, some of them are really good technical judges. They know their information. Yeah, but sometimes performance on the floor goes beyond just the technical aspects, and it's got to make the organizer happy. You got to make the guys up above the organizers happy as well, and that kind of plays a huge role. And maybe we'll touch a little bit on that in regards to the team dynamic portion. But I think before we get there, we can talk a little bit about, if you're going to show up to an event, what are some of the things that you should bring? I mean, physically, what do you bring to an event? And honestly, as I started judging, and I actually, yeah, and as a friend of mine knows all too well, I can actually judge TCG as well. But if you ask the TCG judges, probably I'm not as good as them, sadly.
Oh,
Uh,
stop.
uh, but I kind of started off judging on the TCG side, and as we've done a lot of the BGC stuff, and as things have evolved with BGC over the last 2 years, and even so in this last season that we kind of wrapped up the 2017 season, um, the video game community and the judging and organizing side has really kind of gained a lot of momentum in terms of organization, trying to get a rule set together. Um, and a lot of the rule sets that you see there are starting to come more in line with the trading card game side. Um, Now, with that, prior to some of the things that have happened recently, um, you would see video game judges, and they're not doing much more than making sure people aren't spilling drinks or beating each other across the head because they're doing something stupid.
Wait, you
Uh,
mean video game runs itself?
uh, according to many people, yes, that is a true statement. But anybody that's actually run a video game tournament knows that's not quite true. So we kind of get into this the physical aspect. What do I bring to a tournament? Um, you can see from our little handy dandy checklist here, it starts off with that clipboard, the ever present clipboard. You'll see, and this is something I think Jen has really kind of hammered home on a lot of her events. Um, she's kind of beat it upon me as well. So I started making sure that all of my judges at my events start carrying around clipboards as well, or at least they're at least available for them to use. Some are kind of diehards that don't like to carry actual clipboard, but they still have them available as well as some of the other things on there. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and just cover a couple of these things that what's on your clipboard?
So what's on my clipboard? I mean, there's some Alakazam stuff on there, and no, but for real, the clipboard is like the most important thing, and any TCG judge will tell you, like it's kind of your lifeblood. It's where you have your current rules, and while we are all supposed to be experts in our fields, a lot of the times it's really important to double check with the rules. And so having that rules document, obviously a current one, updated, on your clipboard is really essential if something comes up that, say, maybe doesn't come up often. And you need to just refer to that really quickly, or somebody asks you a question and you're not exactly 100% sure. While you can refer them to Pokemon.com, and that's always a good practice to do, it's also good practice to have those rules there with you in case of an emergency or a forgetful moment. Kind of like if you're under the gun, if you're under pressure, a lot of times you can't think straight, or you want to make sure that you get the right answer, so you have those in front of you.
Right.
Like Mike was saying earlier, with the change in the rules and the fluctuations in how video game runs now, it's so essential to have. I'm kind of going to skip penalty sheets. I'll come back to that, but it's so essential to have those match resolution sheets. I mean, we'll touch upon the timers and everything like that. But the match resolution sheets is one of the most important things that a judge can have with them, because at the end of the round, you're going to have games going to time, and now you have to go the 3 turns, and then that sudden, maybe sudden death, and then you're going to be resolving that match. So it's important for you to have that tool there, so that you can calculate fairly on a piece of paper, which team has the higher or lower percentage of remaining HP. And we'll get into that, later on. But the things that you need absolutely on a clipboard right there, rules, match resolution sheets, and then the penalty sheets, obviously, in case you have to, issue a penalty for something that's been earned. That's something really important, and that'll vary from event to event based on the tier event it is, and then also the style of your head judge. Like, your head judge may want you to check in with them before issuing penalties, or they may want to actually issue all of the penalties themselves. It really depends. Again, maybe on your experience level as well. Mike, how do you prefer to handle your penalties at your events?
Well, before I get into the penalties, I kind of want to circle back around to that the rules document. Um, Echoing the trading card game side, Mike Martin, Pokepop, everybody in the TCG community, if not the whole Pokemon community, knows who he is. He walks around with the penalty guidelines for TCG. Every
Mhm.
time I've been in a judge seminar with him and other high-level judges on the trading card game side, they always, always, always advocate carrying that penalty guideline with you,
Mhm.
even if it's the most mundane, routine type of a ruling or game reset. Always refer back to that penalty guideline because, like you said earlier, it's a long day. There's a lot of events happening. Um, Things can fall through the crack. Things that you think are just super routine um, may not be as routine as you think. So just always double check. You say, hey, this should be this. Flip it over, check it. Absolutely. And it always helps to show to the players um, uh, how you've arrived at that decision or what the outcome of a game or a match has to be. Just in Fort Wayne regionals, I pulled the rules document out a couple times. Um, in the latest set of penalty guidelines, we have the charts that were added into there for the game resolutions for double
Mhm.
game freezes.
Mhm.
And that actually, you know, I don't have the chart memorized, and even if I did, it really helps the players to see that consistency and that we're not making stuff up on the floor. You have a double game freeze; they come up to the table, we try to resolve the freeze, get everything going again. But if you can't, you can walk them through the table. You say, "Hey, you have a double game freeze. We can't resolve it. What's the Pokemon state? It's 4-3. You look it up on the table and you say, here's the official outcome as outlined in the rules document. And even if they may not agree with the actual table itself, they go, well, there's the table. That's what it says, and they move on, right?
Mhm.
They accept it and they move on. And so it helps both the players kind of agree to things and to understand what's happening. Helps them understand that we're not just making stuff up. I know a lot of times you'll hear horror stories on either Twitter or Facebook um, about events that go awry sometimes, or judges that seem like they're making up stuff as they go. Um, so having that rules document and the penalty guidelines, which are kind of all rolled together with you on that clipboard at the ready, really, really helps in those kinds of situations. So I just kind of wanted to hit that up. So going right back to where you kind of threw it back at me, there was the match resolution. I'm sorry, the penalty sheets.
Mhm.
Um, on the video game side, we don't deal with nearly the same amount of um, penalties that need to be issued as you do on the trading card game side. Trading card game side, you have penalties flying left and right throughout the rounds. And Arcanine Labs has a really great, online penalty tracking system for a lot of the larger events. But even the smaller events, it's critical to keep track of these penalties as you progress through the rounds. These penalties allow you to kind of gauge, excuse me, kind of gauge any patterns, repeat offenses, try to find anything that might be systemic in nature that you can kind of address. Um, so on the video game side, while we don't have as many penalties, they do exist. So right now, even though the rules document's evolving, the penalty entry sheets are still very much geared towards the trading card game side.
Right.
But you can make them work because most of our penalties are procedural in nature, or sometimes they border on that unsportsmanlike type things, right?
Mhm.
The cursing, swearing, being too late. Because most of the time on the video game side, during actual gameplay, if we get to things that are, intentionally causing freezes and disconnects. If we can establish that pattern or prove something, it gets into the much larger penalties, where those penalties can be written out off to the side. Um, but most of our penalties, I prefer to handle most of mine with my floor judges. I go ahead and allow them to issue your basic penalties regarding equipment maintenance, failure to follow instructions, tardiness, and those are probably the majority of the ones that you see on the video game side. right now is the tardiness. They were in the bathroom, they missed the start of the round, but they're less than 5 minutes late, or they're 5 minutes late, they're starting a game down. Um, those get written up as well. Um, and more than anything, you're just kind of looking at it for any kind of patterns.
Right. So we actually had a point made in my chat over here from Paradise Bead, who said there's also a good thing to note down the amount of rounds that you have, when lunch is going to be, the number of players, that kind of stuff, when when top cut is going to happen, that kind of thing. So it's also important to make note of the events information as well. So that's another thing you could add to your clipboard. Or as I like to do, I have my little notepad that I keep in my clipboard because I have like a little clipboard binder situation. So I always try to write down any important information in there. But you could always just pop a sheet of paper on there and keep that stuff on there as
Right.
well.
Yeah, that's a great point to be brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Normally those are TO functions, right? The announcements of the number of rounds, top cut, lunch break, those kinds of things.
Yep, yep.
But after that announcement's made, who gets asked all those questions throughout the tournament? And it seems like 5 times every round, when's lunch? How many rounds are there? What's cut? So
Yep.
absolutely. I know Patrick Brett. I don't know if he's on your line. He's not on my side, but Patrick Brett. He copied my clipboard, the little folding case type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually printed out the charts in the official. Oh, I forget which document it is, but the one that shows
I
you
think
based on
it's
the
the
tournament
tournament sanctioning document that tells you.
operating procedures or whatever it is.
Oh, well, Paradise Bead is Patrick Red.
Yes, there you go,
Okay.
Patrick.
Well, hi
All right,
Patrick. How are
so
you?
good point brought up there. But it's great because you just basically print out those charts that are in those great PDF documents provided by the Pokemon Company International, and I just basically laminated them to the inside. Well, actually, I did mine on the outside, and Patrick did his on the inside. Now I'm going to copy him and move those charts to the inside of my clipboard because it's just a great resource because I I can't remember how many rounds. I mean, there are people out there that are like Rain Man. They can tell you based on number of players, how many rounds, how many people are going to cut. I I don't know. I'm not that smart. I'm an old feeble man.
That's lies and
So
slander.
it's much easier for me to flip open my clipboard and say, there are this many players. You're playing this many rounds. Um, Now, again, though, on that same clipboard, you have to know how many players there are in each division. So usually, when those announcements are made, I usually write those on a piece of paper on my clipboard so I can keep
Mm.
track of that. And most of the time, the judges don't even know when lunch is for the players until it's been announced to the players as well.
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
so if we hear it, definitely make note of that so that we can tell the players. Especially important is when you do that.
Yep, you're breaking up over on my side of the stream. Can you hear me, Mike? You also froze a while back, so we may want to restart this Skype call. You hear me?
All right, I got you.
There you are. Okay. All right. So you're back.
All right. So um, we actually had a thing at the Fort Wayne Regionals where we had a new junior video game player that misheard when lunch breaks were and actually heard the
Yeah.
TCG lunch. And they took off for a TCG lunch, and the rounds weren't in sync at the time. So they missed the entire third round, came back at the end of third round when everybody else was heading out to lunch. They were just coming back. So they had lost out on that round. Um, so it is important, and it is important to try to communicate as much as you can to the players. And that kind of leads into one of the other things down below. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to kind of just jump down for a second. But communication is parallel or
Paramount.
paramount. Yeah, that's the
Paramount.
paramount with the judges. And it's not just amongst the team, right? Or the tournament organizer or the head judge. You've also got to communicate with the players. You have to find that time to do it, but you also don't want to interrupt play. You don't want to cause any distractions. But in between rounds when they're setting up or post round when they're cleaning up and clearing out of the area, Ask them how they're doing. Make sure they have, get all their questions answered. Um, and once in a while, you have to pass them off onto another judge. You're going to be busy, engaged in doing other things, and that happens. Um, so communication is a two-way street, but definitely try to engage the players as much as you can to make sure everything is running well.
Absolutely. And like we said earlier, this is definitely a best practices for new judges. So there's a lot more information that I mean, as Mike's talking, I'm thinking about how I handle these things when I'm in different roles, like when I'm in a floor judge role or when I'm in a head judge role or, when I'm like lead or coordinator, that kind of stuff, or when I'm the TO of an event. So there's so many different layers, kind of like ogres have layers, but there's so many different layers that you can get to when you're a judge. So right now we're just kind of focusing on best practices for new judges, just to reiterate that. And I pretty sure in some future iteration of this stream, we'll get into head judging and TO best practices, that kind of stuff. That's definitely something that I would like to cover, and I think Mike will probably agree that it's important because a lot of times you get your start and then you're given your first shot to be a head judge and you're like, uh like a deer in headlights. You have no idea, and it's like, where do you turn to get that information? So yeah, you learn from the judges around you, but we also want to make sure that we collectively share our experiences and experience from other judges that we've worked with, so that you guys kind of get that comprehensive best practice situation,
Right.
I guess.
Absolutely.
So
Well, let's
that covers clipboard, I guess.
yeah, let's just kind of progress there, huh?
So the next thing down is something that's a huge pet peeve of mine, and it's actually caused some issues on live streams prior to the start of this season, and that is cell phones. So I am a big proponent. Like, I'll take my cell phone every once in a while because I'm constantly trying to update my tournaments on social media. You guys all know that I try and be as active on Twitter as I possibly can. But for judges, there is a really bad public view when you have your cell phone out on the floor. Now, you could be doing something as innocuous as checking the time or looking up a ruling, things like that. But it looks really bad for you to have your cell phone out on the floor. So I always encourage my judges to have their own stopwatch that does countdown, and you can totally get one on Amazon or whatever. If anybody is interested, I'll totally link it to my Twitter later on. But you can get one relatively inexpensively, I think less than $20, and it's essential to know the round time, especially if you're at a tournament where there is no public like round time ticking down. Because when the round time goes, you need to know, before the round time is over, you need to be able to identify how many matches are wrapping up, how many matches may be going to time that you're going to have to do sudden death or match resolution, things like that. And it's also really helpful for your tournament organizer for you to be on top of those things so that you can wrap up that round and do what we call turnover as fast as possible. And I know that you guys hate it when you have to stand around for 15, 20, 30 minutes after you finish playing. Well, I mean, if you finish early, that's one thing. But if you're finishing, later on towards the end of the round and they're still taking 15, 20, 30 minutes to turn over, well, what can we do as judges and what can you do as players to make sure that we turn over that round as fast as possible? And the stopwatch definitely helps us there. And so not only are we giving a positive, public face by not being on our cell phones constantly, we also are able to assist the players and the tournament organizer in a flow of a tournament. Mike, do you have anything to add on stopwatches?
Nope, that's about good. Uh, like again, I started my judging career over on the TCG side, and
As
for a
did
long
I. Mm-hmm.
time, yeah, like you ever do TCG.
Not anymore if I can help it.
I know somebody that could make that happen.
Oh no! Please don't.
Um,
Dang it.
yeah. but on the TCG side, especially for a number of years there was this huge stigma about letting players know how much time was left in the round, and I think even to this day, there's a lot of talk about, should they judges tell them, should they not, should there be a public clock, should there not, and if you see that in some of the international events, you'll see. Um, uh, they'll actually post a clock, and they'll start that clock, that countdown clock right at the beginning of the time, the round, and you can actually watch that clock tick down. Um, so usually at my events, I don't have a big public clock. There's one up that's on my stream, so if people are watching the stream, they can get a kind of sense for it.
Right,
But it
right.
is absolutely critical um, that we have those stopwatches. Phones. I mean, if you're running like a super tiny PC or like a local game shop kind
Yeah,
of thing,
yeah.
that's one thing. But as you start to get into the larger mid seasons, regional events, internationals, nationals, worlds, um, absolutely. I mean, people like Jen, she's on social media all the time, and you might be checking, like she said, you're checking that timer, but all it takes is uh, one player, one parent, somebody from the media take a picture of you staring down at your phone
Mhm,
doing
mhm.
something and ignoring the rest of the players. Um, and that's all it takes. It's just one of those pictures taken out of context, and it kind of just ruins the whole image and flow of the event. So definitely, maybe strong recommendation, if not demand, if you're running an event, um, like a regional or whatever, with um, Jen and I, you're probably going to hear us
Constantly.
constantly stopwatch. And if you don't have one and you're going to go somewhere on the floor, or especially if you're going up on the stream, if
Yeah,
you're
I
going
was
to be
gonna
sitting at
mention
that
stream.
table,
Mhm, mhm.
you're sitting at that table, you have to have it. And I'll give up my stopwatch in a heartbeat for
Yeah.
somebody going up on stream because
I
of
mean, you did,
that
and I don't
critical.
think you got it back, did you?
I'm still looking. I don't know if it ever made it back. I don't know, but that's okay. I'll get another one. I gladly donate it since I stole an earpiece from.
Yeah,
But I returned.
I'm actually gonna be grabbing a couple of extra ones for next week so that
Yeah.
we make sure we have them for Hartford. Um, Speaking of stream and stopwatches, stream is run on an independent timer from the rest of the tournament, especially regionals, nationals, internationals, worlds, that kind of stuff. So if you're chosen to be a stream judge, you're not using your phone. You're not pulling out your phone like that. Your phone should stay in your pocket on silent, off preferably, for the entire duration of you being on that stream, because when you sit down in that stream, that camera could be on and you won't even know it. So you could be live and looking at your phone, and now the entire stream world, thousands of people, have seen you sitting there on your phone, not interacting with the players or not doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you're there to do. But also, not only appearance wise, but now you're responsible for the timer. You're going to put that headset on. You're going to communicate with production. They're going to have you start the timer. How are you doing that without a stopwatch? You're not pulling out your phone. I mean, if you have like a smart watch, like an iWatch or whatever that I don't even think. Um, okay, but you really should have the stopwatch because now. So, for example, practical experience, World's Top Four, I believe it was, of Saturday afternoon. I got pulled to do stream judging, had my timer, and they went to time. They went to 3 turns. If that hadn't resolved at turn 3 the way that it did, I would have been pulling out that match resolution sheet and writing things down. And so it was really vital for me to know how much time was left at every given point, especially in case the players ask to know. They're on
Yeah.
stream and they need to know that. So like I said, big pet peeve. I'm a big proponent of stopwatches. I will give my recommendation for that on Twitter if anybody is interested
Right.
after the stream.
Yeah. And this is kind of a good segue into the next topic there. Appearances on stream. Um, this one's kind of tongue in cheek, but in the same regard, it's not. It says there are no hats on stream. I don't know if Jim's online or not.
I
If he's
don't
not,
I
I'm
don't
sure
know
he's
if
going
he
to watch it
is, but
later.
yeah.
He'll definitely watch it later. Um, no hats on stream is another one of those professionalism type things.
Mm-hmm.
And we only bring this up because it was made to be a kind of a big deal at I think it was Madison
Mm-hmm.
Regionals at
Yep.
the end of last season.
Yep.
Um, we had a judge that was on stream like all day, and he was wearing official licensed merchandised hat, and it wasn't until like the top eight, top four that that in the middle of the match he got told that he had to take his hat off. So we've been kind of making a joke of it ever since then on stream. But we understand where it comes from, and because as especially in the larger events where there's an official production stream, put on by ESL and the Pokemon Company International. As a judge, as a staff member, even though you're a volunteer technically, and you're getting compensated in some regards with product or travel stuff, um, the minute you put on the staff gear and you are you put on that stock gear and you get up on that stream, you're in that face of the company, right? So even when you're not on stream, I'll take that back. If you're at the event and you've got the staff badge, you got the staff sweatshirt, Jen's modeling tonight, those
Oh hell
different
yeah.
things. Uh, People are going to ask you questions. They're going to expect things from you. They're going to expect the things that you do, your behavior, the way you present yourself and interact with the public, parents, players, everything. E- Even though we put that disclaimer at the beginning of our cast here, um, we don't work for the Pokemon Company International,
No.
but you know what? Everybody thinks we do.
Yep.
Uh, Anything that
Yep.
we say is going to be construed as coming from the Pokemon Company International when we are at those big events. Um, so you really have to be careful, and that's where kind of that no hat on stream is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it kind of encompasses a broader aspect with regards to, presenting a professional appearance.
Yeah, and not
Care,
even just like an actual appearance. It's like your whole persona, your online persona, the way you behave in public, the way you behave at events. You are a representative, of the company at all times, basically, and you have to, kind of think about that when you present yourself publicly, whether it be in person at tournaments, online, however. We're representatives of the company, and that's whenever I have to do something or make a decision, that's what I'm thinking. How is this going to be perceived by the community or the public? We have a pretty prominent role as judges and tournament organizers, and it's kind of our unofficial job to make sure that we're always a positive face for the company, and we're also kind of like go-betweens, so people are looking to us for answers or things like that, and so the hat on stream kind of becomes a representation of how we should be perceived or how we should present ourselves basically as a whole.
yeah,
It's kind of has to be a philosophy, and it's kind of hard for new judges. Like, I understand it's hard for new judges, especially when you're at your first big event and you're really excited and you're pulling out your phone and you're taking your selfies, or you're interacting with your players, to make sure that you're still maintaining that level of professionalism that we come to expect or that the company deserves, when they choose you to volunteer at a large event. We have to make sure that we maintain that separation. So yes, they're your friends outside of the event, but they're also players, and you are in a position of authority, whether you're a floor judge or a runner or a volunteer or you work in sides, wherever you are. They see you in a position of authority, and it's up to you to be on your best behavior, and represent yourself and the company as best as possible.
absolutely. So speaking of representing the company and working together as a staff, the judge team dynamics. So this kind of brings us to the kind of end of this best practices with a little bit of charging issues there, but
Mm-hmm.
um, judge team dynamics. Everybody knows that an event is only as good as two things: the venue, like the Lancaster Resort, um, or and the staff, right? The staff really can make or break an event. Even if you have the world's best venue, if your staff is not working well together, even if they're really good technical people
Mm-hmm.
as individuals, if you have a staff that does not quite get along and they can't work together well, the event can run poorly, or that this kind of that that aura of not non-cohesiveness kind of just
Mm-hmm.
seeps into everything that they do.
Yep.
Um, so you get into this thing of dynamics, and there's definitely a hierarchy. We're all friends, most of us, in the community of organizers, judges, and players. Um, and so we do a lot of things together. But sometimes when you get to a bigger event and calls need to be made or decisions need to be to made, uh, sometimes that hierarchy, can feel a little awkward because there's a lot of familiarity with each other. But if Jen tells me to just shut up, go do something,
Which I
you know,
wouldn't do. I would say it a
okay,
little, well,
yeah,
maybe
okay.
sometimes I would say it nicer.
Uh, i- if that's her position and that's the thing she's doing, um, eh, that's what has to happen.
No.
And so there's that kind of hierarchy of the chain of command within a judge team. Some sub bullets here that talks about zone judging, leaving the play area, and being proactive. And I know Jen has a lot of thoughts on this particular couple sets of sub bullets there. Um, so I'll let her take it away from here.
So I actually wanted to play off of one thing that you mentioned, wherein the hierarchy. We change roles a lot of times. So we could go from being a lead and a judge to a head judge and a floor judge, in different tournaments throughout the season. And so it's really understanding your role at an event is the role that you're given, and it has no reflection on how you've behaved in the past or anything like that. So if you go from being a head judge at a regional to a floor judge at the next regional, or you're asked to volunteer in sides or whatever, it's really understanding the role that you've been asked to do, doing it to your utmost ability, and not taking it negatively if you're at a lower part of the hierarchy than you have been in the past. But also that the people that are working under you, so the people that are lower on the hierarchy than you at one tournament, may be above you at another tournament. And so learning to accept that changing dynamic is also really important for maintaining like a healthy relationships with the judges. And that's a huge part of team dynamics, understanding that while you may be a floor judge at one tournament, that doesn't necessarily mean that you couldn't be more at a different tournament, but also understanding where you're expected to be there. I just wanted to bring that up because, like I said, that happens so often because there's only so many head judges you can have, only so many lead positions you can have, and we can't all fill them every time. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And um, Jen and I, we've talked about this. I know I've talked to AJ about this as well.
mhm.
I just feel lucky to get invited to staff some of these events,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I'll say it every time is if they want me to come and sweep the floor or
Pick up the
take out
garbage. Yep.
garbage, whatever it is, I'll do it.
I mean,
Okay.
people look at me like I have 10 heads when I say that, but it's honestly the truth. We will go to an event and pick up the garbage if that's the role that we're asked to do,
Yeah,
and we'll be happy
absolutely.
about it because we love doing the tournaments, and we want to continue doing them.
Yeah. Well,
So,
even if I'm at a tournament and I happen to have a larger role, if I'm not doing something at the moment and
we're
they need
picking
me
up
to
the
go
garbage.
go go grab those boxes of product and bring them over here, okay, no problem.
I'm
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's something that's to be expected. Everybody, all hands on deck.
I mean, that brings up another thing with judge dynamics is learning how to clean up the space and understanding that everyone. I'm not using that mug on stream, June. I see that comment. She's asking where her mug is, Mike. I can't use that on stream. um,
Uh,
it's basically understanding that every level from floor judge to side event staff to volunteer to runner to green shirts to everyone, you're expected to, like we said, represent the company, and so if that means pushing in the chairs and cleaning up the garbage and making sure the play area looks nice for when the next round starts, we're gonna do that, and that's how I honestly that's how I judge a new judge. Do they have the right innate skills, or do they have the right instincts? Are they cleaning up after the event? Are they cleaning up after the round, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I'll
Every
segue.
role is important.
Yeah, I'll
Every
segue
role's important. The
into the
green
next.
shirts, yellow shirts, whatever the
Well,
shirts they are now. Yeah, they're all important.
so somebody just asked what's a green shirt. So green shirt
Oh,
is typically what a volunteer walk on volunteer will wear. So in the past at nationals or worlds, we used to have runners that would kind of patrol the play area, collect match slips, bring them up to the head table, that kind of stuff. Now those roles have kind of changed a little bit. So you'll have people at the head table taking the match slips, marking the winner, cutting the match slips at the beginning of a round, hanging up pairings, that kind of stuff, answering questions. So anybody that is in a green shirt heads that says volunteer on the back, they have not been like solicited as a volunteer. They've come to the event with the intention of volunteering at
yeah,
the event on the day or however much they want to work.
right.
Um,
Those and honestly, sometimes those are the roles that if you want to get involved in staffing larger events, sometimes those are the best ones to get noticed at.
so
By how hard you just bust your butt at some of those events wearing one of the volunteer shirts.
he he's in chat and I'm going to call him out. Dan Stur is a classic example of this. Dan Stur, my first nationals, was a volunteer. He was a runner, and like I said, the old position where they would be in the area, take the match slips, run them up, bring the match slips out at the beginning of the round, run them around. Dan was amazing. He was always on point. He was always asking what more he could do. He just so like omnipresent at a tournament, and now he's a judge, and he's phenomenal. So these roles, like I said, these roles are so vital, they're so important, and they get you noticed, and you do a good job in them, and you move up. Everybody has to start from somewhere.
Yeah,
So
and there's Dan's just one example. There's a number of new judges and organizers in 2017 that
mhm,
have
mhm,
really stepped up
yep,
and have just kind of popped up out of quote unquote nowhere.
mhm.
Have done some really great work, and we're going to see a lot more of them here coming up in 2018 and beyond. And I'm really excited for some of that as well. Um, so for the sake of time, we got about 13 minutes left
Oh
on our,
man, we
our
do.
clock here. Um, I
And you were
think,
worried about filling time.
well, I know, I forgot you like to talk, but
Oh,
um,
stop. You've talked just as much as I have. Don't even
probably.
start.
Um, so, some of the other things under team dynamics there about the zone judging and leaving the play area, some of those is just, they're kind of common sense things, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, or just if you haven't worked with a team before, they may not be quite as apparent. Um, Zone judging is something I know Jen and I like to do.
Mhm.
Some other head judges and organizers do things a little bit differently, and it's just basically the difference between playing a man on man defense, or a one-on-one defense, or playing that zone, where you cover certain areas and you're kind of assigned to zoned area. But your head judges will teach you about those as you get into those events. Leaving the play area, if you have to leave the area, if you have to go to the bathroom or you have to take a phone call, again, don't take the phone call on the floor. Um, you need a break, whatever it is, just communicate well with your other judges and your head judge, so that they know where you're at. So when they come
Mhm.
looking for you for whatever reason, they know that you're off the floor taking a break, and that's okay. And you have to communicate um, those things that you need, your needs, your limitations have to
Yes,
be
absolutely.
clearly communicated with the people that you're working for and with. Because if you don't tell me you have a knee issue or a back issue, or
Medical condition like
every
diabetes or
45
something.
minutes, yeah, every 45 minutes you have to go, you know eat a cookie, otherwise you turn into a TCG judge. That's fine. um, you just have to know these things, okay? Um,
Can you tell the rivalry is strong between video game and card game? It is strong.
yeah, I know. Um,
I mean, well,
But
let me just jump in really quickly for the leaving the play area. It's also important to communicate to your other floor judges. So if you're zone judging, you're in charge of a table or two tables or three tables, whatever it is. You're in charge of an area, and you're say it's your lunch hour or you need to step away to go to the bathroom or whatever it is. When before you leave, it's important for you to communicate what's going on to the other judges in your area, whoever is designated to cover you when you step away, so that they're aware. So if there's something that you're monitoring, like there's a connection issue or there's a late player or there's a player who's kind of been a little rambunctious or a little handsy or whatever, it's always important to communicate that to the judge that's coming in to fill in for you, or even the head judge, so that everybody is on the same page, so that when you step away, you're confident and we're confident that what was going on the floor is going to be managed. So that's another important part about leaving the play area. And again,
absolutely.
all of it is being proactive. It's letting your other judges, if you see something wonky, like, hey, this player over there keeps talking about his opponent forfeiting, but he's not actually asking for it. Can you keep an ear on this match or keep an ear on this player? Like, absolutely, that's definitely being proactive if you hear something. Or if you're not sure, like, hey, that parent over there has been standing behind some kid that's not his kid and he's kind of recording them. I'm not sure if that's okay. If you tell the head judge that, they're absolutely going to take you seriously, even if it's completely unfounded, even if you don't know what you're talking about or whatever the case may be. Being proactive is always going to be a positive thing for us. Um, just because it shows us that you're paying attention and you're actually being a positive having a positive impact on the play area and on the judge team.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in the sake of time, I think we've hit most of these pretty well. I really want to get into some of these hot button issues for the BGC 2017. Um, there's a couple in there that are kind of short topics, but the other ones are a little bit longer. Um, so I definitely want to make sure we hit on those. Something that came up earlier was the new timer in 2017. So with the advent of Sun and Moon, um, the comment was made earlier. BGC runs itself, right? Well, back in the
Not
day,
anymore.
there was the in-game timer, and it handled everything, and boom, games just resolved, and everything's hunky dory. But with Sun and Moon, they went to this kind of a thing called My Time, and it's this kind of a chess-based timer thing. But based upon the current meta and this My Time, and you could actually have games and matches that last hours. So they implemented a round timer. So in the 2017, we have this new concept now where judges have to keep track of time.
Hmm.
And if a game doesn't naturally resolve itself, where the game says this is the winner and this is the loser, or in the rare case of a tie, um, we now actually have to resolve these individual games and determine who's actually winning.
Right.
Um, so it's a whole new leap forward for video game judges and things that they have to keep track of and understand. Um, so we're demanding a lot more from the judges. So this new timer in and of itself has kind of really pushed the judging side of video games for the Pokemon
I mean, it also
to
changes
that
the
next level.
dynamic for the players too, because the players have to think about the teams that they choose or the way that they play their matches completely differently. Where you may not play, fast or think about things quickly, you're now running around your own timer and taking away from the time that you're going to have at the end of the match, and you could
Right.
run out of time
Right.
even before the round runs out of time, and now you've lost because you've taken a little bit too long. But also, it changes the kind of teams that players can play. So when we realized how big of a impact Celesteela was going to have, it was like, oh well, we absolutely can't just have these 10-minute my time matches going, because I think we timed it out. It was like 100 or 1,000 something turns or whatever it was for hours on end. And I don't know the exact specifics of it, but so now with that in mind, you can't have one round running
Right.
for hours on end. So that's why we have the 50-minute timer for each round when we have best of three. And these are things that TCG judges and players already think about because they're
Right.
used to having stall decks, or they have a certain amount of time to do each operation. I have 45 seconds to look through my deck. I have 15 seconds to pick this. I have this amount of seconds to do that. And they actually have penalties for slow play. Those judges, that's one of their huge issues on their end. It constantly comes up, how to get the players to play a little bit faster, to keep on their proper tempo. So whereas it affects us on one end, it also affects the players on the other end, and so that creates an interesting dynamic that's kind of still playing out. And I guess we'll see um, if Pokemon Japan decides to continue with the your time when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon come out. That's like one
Yeah.
of the things that I'm waiting to see, what happens there.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see. Absolutely. Now, there are a couple of little bullets left. The double game freeze resolutions and sudden death um, are kind
You're
of
breaking up on my side, Mike. And my internet connection is really good too. Mike, you there?
here.
All right, there you are. Sorry about that.
Um, but the double game freezes themselves are nothing new, but how we resolve them sometimes are now is a little bit different. But I don't think that's necessarily a huge thing. It's going to evolve how we refine that moving forward. Sudden death is a little bit newer now that we have the round timer and these matches that can go to time where we have the +3 turns. But the two things I definitely want to capture here in our closing minutes is the top 8 with resistance and the team sheet issues and penalties. From the very beginning of our season, and I know Jen knows the pain all too well with the team sheet. Start one.
London.
Uh, team sheets have always been a thing in the video game community.
They were a
But
thing before London. They were a
yep,
thing before
it,
last season.
they've
Team
always
sheets
been
have
there.
been around for at least 2 to
Right.
3 years. So,
But the importance of them has always been downplayed until this season. Uh, with this season, there's been a much stronger emphasis on accuracy of your team lists and making sure that reflects your team, and it's been elevated to the same level essentially as your deck list that you see on the TCG side. It
mhm,
is pseudo king, right? I mean, what's really king is your team that gets locked, but it's another check for judges and organizers to ensure that players are playing with the team that they said they're playing with, that there aren't any of the shenanigans going on. Um, so it is vital that we continue the consistency of the importance of these team sheets as we move forward. In the 2018 season and even beyond until the Pokemon Company says we don't want them anymore. But I don't see that happening. So
no.
these team sheets are going to be around. They're important. And, if you ever hear a player or another organizer saying um, they're not very important, why do we do them? They absolutely are very critical, and we need to continue to do those. Application of penalties has evolved over this season, and
Mhm.
I have a very strong feeling that they're going to continue to evolve with regards to the types of penalties that need to get applied to um, team sheet errors. Trying to categorize what's a minor error on a team sheet versus a major error versus a severe error on team sheets. Um, and part of the issue with trying to refine that approach is it, sometimes the severity of an error on a sheet has to deal with circumstantial evidence, like what time is this error caught? Is it pre-tournament? Is it
Mhm.
first?
Mhm.
Is it going into top cut? Um, is it something that in all reality does it really make a huge impact on actual game dynamics if as long as it's still valid? Um, so it kind of levies a little bit of a requirement on the judges to understand the mechanics of the game, and you don't have to necessarily be a super competitive player, but understanding the basics of how some of these interact with each other to understand the severity.
Yeah.
Um, But I don't want to get into a whole lot. I mean, we could probably spend an entire hour on
I
team
think
sheets.
that's probably something that we should do, go over like rules documents and things like
Right.
that, and we
Yeah.
could definitely do a whole segment on hot button issues. I think we just kind of added that in there in case we wrapped up the other stuff really quickly, just as insurance so that we weren't dead airing, staring at each other. Um, but yeah, we could talk about team sheet issues and interaction of penalties and timing on things like that for an entire hour, if not more. I know we've talked about it the entire season, so it's definitely something we can discuss at another time.
Yeah, and I think we're right about the hour. But the last thing, since it is on there, and I know there's some people online that are kind of curious about it. For those of you that may not know, debuted at U.S. Internets on the video game side was this concept of nobody bubbles. So when you get into your top cut, where you normally have your top eight, and then number nine through however many, tough luck, Charlie, right? But
Mm-hmm.
they premiered this thing. They called it extended cut, or I can't remember exactly what they call it, asymmetrical cut, even though sometimes it's symmetrical. But basically, it basically just takes the same match record as the number eight player that would normally make cut, and all the players with the same match record as number eight also came into the top cut with that top eight. So you could have a top eight, you could have a 10, 12, 16. What was it at the Anaheim Open? There was like a top 44.
something,
It was
something.
something. It was
Yeah,
something crazy.
yeah. I
I,
think I
I
think because they played one less round than they should have, that's why they
so
had that many
I,
into cut.
I think that we've had a lot of mixed reviews with that, and I think the Pokemon Company International has also had a lot of mixed reviews with regards to that. And I think that top cut of like 44 is one of the reasons we probably haven't seen it yet again this year. So far, I think they kind of want to try to iron out some of the mathematical wrinkles, if you will, before we see that again, if we even see it again. But might be a
Well,
whole other topic about tournament structure and
right.
that
But
nature
there's
forward.
there's also the practical aspect of it. Like the tournament software right now isn't designed to give us that kind of a cut. So without revealing too much information, that basically the cut has to be handled differently than a normal tournament entirely. And so while you can do that at a national or a world level or international and a world level, because you have the company there for oversight, or you have like the top people there for oversight on that kind of a situation, at a regional and a lower level, you don't really have that oversight. And so somebody not experienced on how to fill a bracket or how to set that up properly and run it and then submit the report so that
Mhm.
you guys all get your CP credited
Yeah,
properly,
absolutely.
that'd be a disaster. I mean, think about how many times you hear about disasters now where the organizer chose the wrong type of tournament, or they forgot to put cut in, or whatever have you, all the mishaps that happen, honest mistakes. I'm not saying that anybody doesn't really know what they're doing, but there's honest mistakes out there, and there could be an instance even at the lower level of something happening even without getting into that complicated situation or that complicated formula that we have to do.
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
we we want it because you want it. The company is listening, they're trying it out. Just because we don't have it now doesn't mean we won't have it next season, or whatever.
Right,
Just hopefully it's coming. That's really all we can say. Like, Mike
right,
and I don't have insider information. Let's just
right.
throw
So
that
don't
out there.
so
We
don't
don't
ask us on
know.
social media. We have no clue.
We don't know when the format's changing. We find out when you guys do. We don't know when regionals are. Well, we don't know now because it's all posted. We don't know. All, there's so much stuff that you guys ask about, assuming that we know. We don't. I wish I could tell you. We did, and just oh, it's a secret. No, we.
We just don't.
Sorry, we don't work for the company.
All
So
right. So I think
I'm gonna
we're
transition back to our main since we've just finished. Hey, look at that, Mike. You've been frozen the entire time, but you have a really awesome looking face right now. So it's pretty sweet.
that's
You've
sick.
you,
Yeah, I love
you
it.
so
Um, so we're kind of wrapping up our first ever PokéStew. Um, So we thank you for joining us this evening, and if you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give us some good feedback. That'd be great. If you didn't enjoy it, you can still give us feedback, but be nice.
Yeah, please
Appreciate it.
go easy on us.
Um, and if it's something you want to see more of, please just hit the subscribe buttons,
Yep.
give us a ring, talk us up to other people, try to get our viewership up, and more importantly, this is stuff that we kind of started out today with things that are kind of near and dear to our hearts, things that we think should be shared with other organizers and judges on the video game community. If you have other topics that you want to see covered, shoot us a note. Just
Absolutely. I just put
just
our Twitter handles in the chat so that you guys see it.
awesome. Um, So please just send us the ideas. We'll put together some agendas. We'll try to kind of make them themed so that we're not talking about everything under the sun on a particular episode, but definitely try to get them themed together, and then we will get more of these episodes to you, hopefully on a weekly basis, as long as the will's there and we have the topics to keep talking.
We're also going to
So,
have guests because
oh
apparently
yes.
that what we're doing is kind of popular among the judge staff. So we've already been asked by several people, both within the United States and also globally, if they could be a guest on this. So if there's somebody that you want to hear from within the community, either on the TO judge side or even players, like, or maybe the people that are doing the streaming, we would love to bring you whatever content that it is that you want within reason, obviously, as long as it's something that we can chat about.
All right. Well, again, thanks for joining us this evening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. See you soon.
See you guys.